This part is going to be maps and map projections. There are two general types of maps, whether it's a reference map or a thematic map. Reference maps are just designed to show general information, not really show patterns or anything like that, just general information. So whether that's like a political map like you see here of France in the top right, or whether that's a road map like you see of Minnesota. Just general basic information. Or you could show a physical map. This is of Ethiopia where you have mountains and rivers and things like that. We're not going to look a ton at physical maps just because that's more physical geography. Or you could have a locator map, and this is showing the location of businesses. So those are your reference maps. Now, when looking at thematic maps, this shows spatial aspects, and this is going to show more just information we'd use to decipher patterns. So the first one down here is a choropleth map, which is going to use colors and shading. So in this case, it uses colors to show different unemployment rates here in 2008, and it also uses shape a little bit, but more or less choropleth map is going to use color to show difference. Or cardiogram uses size for difference. So this is a cardiogram of the world, and this is specifically looking at population density, and population density here with Russia and, with India and China just being high, and Japan also being high. So this is where you adjust size to show a characteristic. So size with cardiogram, choropleth, you adjust color. Now, next one is an isoline, where you're going to use lines to show variation across space. So this bottom left one down here shows sunlight and sunlight differences across Europe. You use it with a lot of physical features, like you'll see it a lot on lakes to show depths. A lot of times, we're not going to use those a ton. So you can see here just the chart, the characteristic changes and is less true, or there's less of it, like rainfall. It's used a lot with too. Or you use a dot map. Dot map is used a ton for population because it's just a dot equals a person typically, or dot equals 50 people or whatever. In this case, this shows a dot map of the racial makeup of Brazil. So from this slide, you should understand two basic types of maps, and especially the thematic maps, just the different uses of each. Next, let's go to projections. No matter what map you're looking at, the map is lying to you. The map is lying to you because you're taking a 3D object known as the Earth, which is almost a perfect sphere, and you're trying to put it on a 2D surface. You can't do it. And so no matter what, you're always going to have distortion, whether it's around shape, distance, proximity, or direction. You can have none of them correct. You can have one of them correct. You can even get to three of them correct. But one of them will always be wrong. Shape is like the area can be distorted. Distance is it can be increased or decreased. Relative size can be off compared to everything else, or direction can be off. The most famous projection by far is mainly used for navigational purposes is the Mercator map. Mercator map is seen here, is most known for Greenland. Greenland is huge, and Greenland is way bigger than Africa, and I'll show you something in a second with that. But I mean, this map is great for shipping. It's straight lines the whole time. As you go across the Earth, that's how you go, is in a straight line, and you'll reach point A or point B. So it's great for shipping purposes. Let me show you something. All right, so this is a cool little tool here. It will show us what a country would look like at different spots on the map. So for instance, if you take Australia, this is what Australia would look like at the equator. However, and how it looks on a Mercator map, it's down here in the corner, but the further you get away from the equator, the more it gets distorted. So if it was in the same space as Greenland, Australia would look like that. Put Australia down here home. One I like is Brazil. Okay, so Brazil is basically on the equator, right? Goes through there. Brazil is in the same spot as Greenland on the map on a Mercator projection. It would look like that. So you can start to see where Africa here gets, the more you get towards the poles, the more things get exaggerated. So this is Greenland. There's your actual size of Greenland compared to Africa. Not even close. Africa is more than 10 times bigger. Yet on a Mercator map, Greenland looks twice as big. So whenever you're trying to identify maps, Greenland is always going to be your key starting point. If Greenland looks huge and ginormous, it's probably a Mercator map. Not very much used today because, unless you're shipping, because shipping it looks really good for. And then, by the way, this says Mercator here with a hyperlink. Besides that, it's not really good for much. Now, spatial distribution related to area. So this is good for showing land masses. It's going to use the Peters projection. So the shapes aren't accurate, but the sizes are right relative to each other. So shape isn't right, but size is relative here. So this is the Peters projection, and then here you can see how much bigger Africa is than Greenland. That's Peters. Again, not used a ton either for that reason, because it does distort things around shape, but it's still useful. The next one, it's good for general use, is a conic projection, which looks at where you're going to have direction isn't constant. And here's what I mean by that. There's an ejection of goods homeless line. You don't fall off the earth. If you take an orange peel and you put it down, you might get something that looks like this. So this is good for a lot of different purposes. You'll see this one used a lot because it is good for just kind of general use. The lines of latitude and longitude got work there. Shape and size are close to being right. And while direction's not constant, unless you're shipping, who cares? The last one's a good general use map. And this is the Robinson projection. This is actually what National Geographic recommends. There's no major distortion. It takes all four of shape, distance, proximity, and direction and just distorts them a little bit instead of having one completely correct, the more you have correct with one, the less you're going to have correct with everything else. In this case, you just have small distortions for each, where area, shape, size, and direction are slightly distorted here. This is the Robinson projection. It is the one most commonly used because, like I said, it just distorts everything a little bit. It isn't perfect. It's like, for instance, Hawaii oftentimes gets left off of maps. And you can see here how this little small part of Russia gets on this side of the map. Well, that's not wrong. It's just what angle are you looking at it from? For instance, there's another type of projection that's a polar projection up here, where you look at things down from the top. And so it really just is a matter for what you're going to use it for and for what map you're going to use. Navigation, use Mercator. You're going to look at area, Peters. If you're looking general use, Conic or Robinson.